Welcome to the front row. I'm your host, Brad Rowe, and this is a space where unfiltered stories of the human condition get told. Pull up a chair. How's it going, folks? So I am here with my good friend, TJ Fry. TJ, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you, if you hear a cat or you see my cat jump up, she's being annoying today. So we're going to have another little guest part of the party. TJ and I, we met about a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah. So I went skiing. I guess you were snowboarding, but yours makes no difference, right? But met on the hill and had a good time. Just held on it every ways.
Yeah. So TJ and I have had kind of an immediate connection. We kind of created this strong brotherhood with another friend of ours, George. And
yeah, George introduced us. Should definitely give him credit for that because he was the catalyst to us me connecting as we have. So very grateful for that.
And TJ is one of the main reasons why I decided to stay here in Montana. Met some really good people and became family. It was one of those things where we go to church every Sunday. We had Sunday dinners together and always being together. So I'm so grateful to have you on here and to get to know your story, where you've been and where you're heading and the challenges that you've faced.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I'm excited to be here. You know me, I'm willing to have conversations and go deep with people. That was my word actually for 2025 was depth, because I wanted to connect with people beyond just the superficial, like, how's the weather? How are you doing? Good. Okay. So yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to do it. It's, as I know you, having listened to your episodes of your story, I'm a little nervous, if I'm honest, just being real about it, but at the same time, like, in a good way. And I'm glad to get to do this with you. So yeah, man, let's start there.
All right. So TJ has a pretty remarkable backstory as well. He's done a lot of pretty cool shit, to say the least.
Thank you.
So I'll let him dive into talking a little about his story and his background, and then what current situations he's navigating right now. And I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I'll do my best to keep it relatively short, but it's been very blessed. I've had a pretty incredible life thus far. And I did all kinds of stuff, man. I basically was one of those people who wanted to be a jack of all trades and just wanted to dabble in all kinds of things. And therefore, I'm not an expert at a whole lot. There's a handful of things that I consider myself an expert level at, but there's not very many. Grew up in Colorado. I was born in Hawaii because dad was in the military station there. I don't remember it at all, but spent most of my youth in Colorado. Graduated high school in Golden and came up to Montana in 2005. So I've been here over 20 years now. And I fell in love with my wife when we went to MSU Bozeman together, graduated with a degree in film and photography. And so I suppose technically a Bachelor of Arts in Film and Media Theater Arts and whatever the heck the title is. I have used that very little in my life. I've had a number of companies over the years. I built race cars. I skied semi-professionally. I shot films all over the world and traveled quite a bit for that, and trained race car drivers, trained law enforcement, military, special operations, and driving. And on top of now being married to the love of my life and having a little girl, and we're going to have a son before too long here. So, being a dad is all the things I've done, man, winning championships in drumline in high school, all the way to competing in the U.S. Open on skis, and eventually racing at an extremely high level and working with some of the biggest dudes in motorsports. And it's been a wild ride. And at the same time, it pales in comparison to the way that I feel when I go home and, the little girl runs down the hallway, like, Daddy's home. And it's just, yeah, man, I've been very, very blessed. And at the same time, nothing compares to being a dad. So that's a short background. I'll probably keep it at that. But yeah, there's more to it. But I think the things I consider myself an expert at would be driving, skiing, film. I'm a movie buff as well and have a degree in it, which, like I said, I haven't used a whole lot. And other than that, man, I'm becoming an expert in the mind. And so I have a certification as a trainer in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And I work with clients one-on-one to figure out what challenges and hurdles they have, help them get over it, and kind of tweak little things in their unconscious minds and in their perspectives, and then try to help them get to a place where they can have these breakthroughs. And it's a fascinating field that I'm spending more and more time in. So I'm very much enjoying that now. Eventually, once I have, the two kids at home and the wife, my goal is to be able to be home with them every day and just the goal is to be present and be there. And I struggle with that, if I'm honest, because I want to work hard. And that's a whole other thing I suppose we can dive into, man, is trying to find that balance of how do you be a present husband and father when the bills have to get paid and when I place so much value on working hard or creating something or being valuable, creating value. And then in so many senses, I neglect my family because of that. So there's an awful lot of ways that we could go. And yeah, I think that's a reasonable background for me.
Yeah. I want to dive a little bit back into kind of your experiences. So you've done in race car world, you were drifting. That was primarily what you make folks.
Drifting, I competed in stage rally. I raced Pikes Peak, the Pikes Peak you'll climb in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I actually proposed to my wife there. I had Will You Marry Me on the car and posed at the summit. That was really neat. On top of a number of other things. One of my favorite things to do in the driving world was to train special operators, right? So our tier 1 units, which is, in the US is Navy SEALs, we did a lot of MARSOC. We did some Delta work. You worked with a number of different contracting agencies, but those guys are professional students. And so it was really neat to be around oftentimes men who were younger than I was at the time, who were truthfully just, there's a lot of braggadociousness and ego in the room. And yet they're there to learn about one thing from me and the other guys we were training. And it's like, I would never presume to tell them how to clear a room or tactical anything, right? Like that's not my area of expertise, but I didn't have to convince them that I knew what I was doing when it came to piloting a car. And so I really enjoyed doing that. It was a lot of fun to have students who actually listened and applied the things we did versus like, I'll just go on record saying it. Porsche drivers are the worst. They know everything and they will tell you they know everything and their cars are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so with certain types of drivers, and it's not uniquely Porsche, of course, but a lot of folks, you have to convince that their way doesn't work as well as yours before you can actually make any progress. So I learned as a younger man that oftentimes people have to see their methods fail before they're willing to make a change.
Yeah.
And so that became, a big eye opener for me. Like, well, where am I doing that in my life? Turns out everywhere. So, but the driving thing was an awful lot of fun for sure.
Now going to comparing driving and skiing, because so my first time hanging out with TJ skiing, he's like, I'm pretty decent. And that was really a group of other friends. Next thing you know, TJ went down the hill backwards the entire time, hitting jumps and all this stuff. My friend's like, decent? Like a little better than decent. So that kind of threw me for a loop. And obviously, an amazing race car driver. What brought you the most satisfaction out of both of those?
Well, actually the same thing. So, I've been an adrenaline junkie for most of my life. I've toned that down a great deal as I've gotten older, and especially since I've had children, but, we're a child and soon to be children. But, I noticed at a young age, probably 16, 17 years old, that my mind just races all day long. And I catch myself ruminating. I mean, I like pointless stuff. And this is something that, I watched my grandmother and my mother do, where it would be like something would happen and they would ruminate. And my mom and I hold a wonderful relationship now, and I'm super grateful for that. I'm going to give her tons of credit because it would have been so easy for both of us we were like cats in a wet paper bag when I was, young. And so it would have been very easy for both of us or one of us to just like throw our hands up and, give it up and God bless her and thank the Lord that she and I both wanted a good relationship. And so it took 15 years really of concerted effort for us to really be able to bond, and we have. But I say that because one of the things that she taught me unwittingly, I think, or unintentionally, was that I remember getting in these fights and she would go in the other room and, vacuum or do whatever she was doing. And then I would think it would be over, but she would come back in and just like start yelling at me again. And I watched, my grandmother do this, and it was a behavior that I catch myself doing a lot, where I will ruminate on something, say you and I have an argument, and then like I'll go home and be like, oh, I could have said this and it would have been a great gotcha, man. And it's like, it's done. Like, why am I still thinking about this thing? And so, having learned that from my mom, now I recognize that that's something that I do, and I try to be careful about it and catch myself, but I still find myself doing that an awful lot. And so with the challenges there of my mind racing so much, and that was just one symptom of it. I mean, it was really difficult for me to sleep, still is to this day. I can sleep, but it's hard for me to like actually go to sleep. And like I'll fight it, which is ridiculous. And I know it's unhealthy and it's not good for me. And yet I'll stay up late watching whatever, And what I found with driving and skiing, it first happened with skiing. I remember jumping off these massive jumps. 40, 50, 60, 80, biggest jumps I ever hit were around 100 feet from the takeoff to the landing. And that was only a couple of times, but those were really big. And, when you're hitting like 40, 50 foot tabletops on a regular basis, the thing that I experienced was the amount of adrenaline and danger that took place. It actually began, it felt immediately, I felt this peace, because it was like a survival mechanism, I think, because, you would leave this takeoff and you're floating through space 20, 30 feet in the air or more, and just waiting to come down. And sometimes, you're spinning, you're flipping, you're doing all these different things. And it's like, you're just kind of waiting for, you're either going to land it or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you don't, there's a chance you get hurt. And so your lizard brain, if you will, is always like everything, the noise just shuts off. And so I began to experience this. I started to pursue the peace that I got in those moments of adrenaline. And so I had a lot of injuries, and broken bones, knee problems. I blew out both of my ankles. Not quite as bad as like Tanner Hall, if y'all are skiers, and he's from here in the valley where we live. But I did rupture, I messed up both of my ankles at the same time. I was in a wheelchair like half a dozen times. And I realized that it wasn't worth it. I lost a couple friends and people that I knew in the ski world. And I realized that I was never super competitive. I was never like winning events. I'm a great skier, but I'm not a world-class skier. And I think only because I don't know that I had that like natural talent that some people did. And also because I frankly didn't put the work in to be in the condition to be able to do it. And so because I didn't love it that much, I got that peace out of those moments of danger. And I found that later, because I realized there wasn't a future in it. I was like, well, I'm either going to get seriously hurt and really struggle the rest of my life, or maybe get killed. And I remember my mom telling me, she said, I wish you wouldn't do all that stuff, because if you break your neck and get hurt, like, I'm not going to take care of you. And here's the thing, like, she absolutely would have. And I know that. But like, her point was like, quit being dumb and take care of yourself. And she was right. But, I pursued that peace because that was the only way I had found at the time to shut it off. Driving kind of gave me the same thing. Racing cars is not safe. It's not nearly as dangerous as certain other activities like jumping off of cliffs on skis and whatnot. But you're surrounded by a cage, but it's still dangerous. There's the risk of fire and, all kinds of different problems. But I found that in driving as well. And so the peace that I got from adrenaline it really drove me for a lot of my young life. And I now know that was in pursuit of escape, which is one of my main methods of dealing with things, is to turn to some other method. In fact, when I was younger and when I opened my first shop before I became a professional driver, I wanted to build cars. And so I opened a shop in Bozeman, Montana, and was building engines and roll cages and race cars and things, as well as doing regular maintenance on customers' rigs. And I lived in the shop actually, and across the parking lot was a marijuana grow operation. And in high school, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I kind of one-hand the number of times I ever did anything like that. High school was actually a pretty good kid, but I would do dumb things. I would, shoot potato guns that stand on top of cars that were driving, and, do crazy stuff on skis, or, I'd get in trouble over like silly stuff. But was actually a fairly good kid. And then when I got to college, I started drinking, and I found a lot of like kind of that peace in there to sort of like numb that lizard brain, if you will, and monkey mind.
Yeah.
And when we had my shop in Bozeman, I found the same thing next door. They'd trim the weed, and so we'd get a bunch of the scraps and stuff. And I got really big into smoking weed, became like a daily thing for me. Not a proud thing. It's something I don't do it very often anymore, but sometimes I'll have periods where I'll like slot back into it. But I know what I'm doing is I'm running from responsibility. I'm running from pain. It's in a mechanism of avoidance. And so for several years there at my shop, I found that smoking weed was basically giving me that same feeling of peace that I used to get flying through the air in my skis, or that I used to get, or that I would eventually find from driving. Driving kind of got me away from the weed thing, which was good, but now I was putting myself back in harm's way, and not even in a good way, because at least if I was driving, I was in control. In fact, I grew up Catholic, and I used to have, my mom got me this St. Christopher medal. St. Christopher is the patron saint of safe travels, and I had that with me. I still have that medal, actually, and I almost got St. Christopher tattooed on my right foot, because that's the one that really keeps you safe when you drive. And I never did, but the sentiment was real for me, meaning that, I want to be safe in the car, but I know who I am and what I'm going to do. I'm going to push myself. And so instead of doing weed, now I was back in this dangerous zone of risking myself. And that even manifested financially, man. My wife, Danny, is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I can say that even with a daughter and a son on the way, because she's blessed me with those two children. And, she's stood by me through all of the challenges, but I avoided the hard things. And so I spent money and I risked my future. I went into debt to go racing, and I did, to be at this high level and try to compete. And, it basically put our lives on hold for years, but she put up with it, and she supported me even for quite a while. But then when it was evident that I wasn't willing to do the work to really make it as a driver in that industry, wasn't necessarily I wasn't even willing to do the work. It was just I didn't have the mindset. I didn't believe in myself. I wasn't good enough. I struggled with that my whole life. And so because that was so prevalent, it was like, well, I'm just putting all of these things on credit cards and like basically destroying our future to go play with cars. And we had to come to Jesus moment where she basically said, you got to choose, like, do you really want a family? Do you want stability in a house, or do you want to play with cars? And she didn't even say, like, you have to choose me or the cars. It was just like, what are you doing? Right. But yeah, so she's hands down the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's been supportive of me growing, even when it's been extremely difficult. And honestly, when it would have been easier for her rapidly. So yeah, man, the biggest thing for me has been that pursuit of peace, which is manifested in avoidance, whether it's through substances. And really the only things I've ever done were drinking and marijuana. I've never gotten into other drugs, but I've done that by choice because honestly, Brad, I'm afraid I'd like them.
Right. It's slippery slope of, yeah.
Yeah.
Try this once, and you're like, this feels too good. And then don't want to go back.
I did try at one point. I did try, I think, Molly. Is that a saying? I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
I did try that, and I remember, like, I think watched a movie. It wasn't like I'm not a big concert guy, so I wasn't like going to all these shows or anything. I played drums, so I was usually in the concerts playing on the stage. So being in concerts has never really been a big thing for me. But yeah, I tried Molly, and I remember I'm sitting there and I'm talking with Danny, and I'm like, I don't think I really feel anything, And she's like, how we're touching your so
you feel it.
Like, but I feel amazing. So, but that kind of scared me, because I remember, like, all we did was we took like a thing of water, and she put like a little, like a, that like comically sized sugar on sugar, like decorative sugar cookies. She put like one of those little things, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, that's terrifying, because I enjoyed it. And I was like, I don't need more of this. So I never really got into anything else. I only did that one time. And I've been too afraid, because if I like, my willpower is not great, right? Like, it's really not. I have to get better about that, because if I don't, my children are going to pick that up from me, and that terrifies me. So, yeah, I think really long-winded answer to your question. I think that the peace and the avoidance is really what I've been pursuing my whole life, because it's just all noise in here.
Yeah.
Even right now.
Yeah. You're not the only one. I have other friends that are avid skydivers and, adrenaline junkies. That's what I say. Like, the only time I find peace is when I feel like my life's a lot, when they're risking it all.
Yeah.
So, and understandable, I think a lot of us suffered from that, like that monkey mind that just never shuts off and there's no escape from it. No matter what time of day, when you're in bed, it just always comes up. So we're always looking for something to get out. And whether that's, workaholism, adrenaline, or, whatever it might be, just to try to find that escape.
Well, for me right now, man, and this is where, like, I know a lot of people are going to relate to this, and this is, not something I'm ashamed of, if I'm honest, but it's cheap dopamine. And the thing is, now, with having studied the mind and our neurotransmitters and the neurochemical things that take place within our brains and our neurology, it's frustrating to me to know what I'm doing and still do it.
Yeah.
Which really, really makes you feel super great about yourself. But yeah, man, I mean, it's scrolling on social media, it's the games and fun when it's, I've had a horrendous on and off relationship with porn my whole life.
And that's embarrassing to say. It's just that it's true. I remember there was a kid I used to play with, was probably 6 years old. And I remember we were down in his parents' basement and he showed me one of his dad's Playboys. And it was like, I didn't even know what to do. I didn't really even understand what I was looking at, but it was like, it happened so young when suddenly, like, this image of women, it was like flipped in my brain. And now, pushing 40 years old, it's still something that I turn to. And that cheap dopamine of just whatever it is, man, like the alcohol, the weed, the porn, the scrolling, the social media, all of it. It's exhausting, and all of these things are designed to elicit that dopaminergic response. And so I know it's happening, and yet I still do it. And it's like, I do it, and then I just, even while I'm doing it, I'm like, you're better than this. Like, what are you like, talking to myself, like, what are you doing? And I'm hard on myself, I think, like a lot of men are, but it's hard to be peaceful with yourself and, give yourself some grace. Like, I actually hate that saying because it comes from a good place, but I don't get to give myself grace. As you know, I'm a devout Christian. It's God's grace that we're blessed with. And Jesus' sacrifice that saved us from our sins and saved us from an eternity disconnected from our Father. I don't feel right giving myself grace. It doesn't mean I have to be hard on myself. I ain't saying that, but it's just, I don't feel good about, like, giving myself grace. I feel like I should be honest with myself and say, like, yeah, it's okay. You know what? You're going through some things. Things are tough. Whether it's at home or whether it's, family things, or, I recently lost my father, and there's a lot of reasons that I could use as excuses, and maybe they're not even excuses because they're legitimate reasons. But if I give myself that grace, at what point does that grace become a crutch? Right.
So yeah, it's been really difficult to still have these behaviors as a grown man, and I'm supposed to steward these little blessings. I'm supposed to lead my family, but I can't seem to, shouldn't say I can't because it's not true, but like I make the choice to indulge in these activities. Because why? Because it feels good? Because I'm weak? Because I'm a sinner? Because I don't know, any reason I come up with, it's just, there's no good reason to do any of them.
Yeah. But you also have to understand, like, we are fleshly objects. and there's a reason why Christ had to die for us, because our flesh wants to take over. This meat operating system, I like calling it that, is like the thing that we focus most on is comfort protection. So literally our brain just tells us to be as lazy as possible, to seek comfort as much as possible in self-preservation. And we are just set up, especially with the way society is, to have overexposure to these things that bring comfort, that numb us, that ease us. So I understand how you talk about, giving yourself grace becomes a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it does, because, if you're continuously making excuses for your sins and you're continuously diving headfirst into them, at some point there needs to be accountability. But when things happen, and they are going to happen, it's not beating yourself into a pulp and filling yourself with shame and guilt and ruminating over that. It's like, okay, this happened. What do I need to do now in order to not allow this to happen, to honor that sacrifice of Christ, to honor walking on this earth as a child of God, and try to be walking in the image of him. So it's kind of that fine line of like, yes, we do need to forgive ourselves and give ourselves a little bit of leeway, because we are just human.
Yeah.
But also not opening ourselves up to of like, okay, just because I'm forgiven and I'm always forgiven, that I can just continue to live in sin.
Yeah. Well, and that's where like, so I checked my phone a moment ago, and what I have on here for those of you listening is Romans 8:13, which is, by the Spirit I put to death the misdeeds of my body, which is really proven helpful for me, because it's, when I remember to look at that, when I remember that passage, it helps me in those moments where I'm drawn to do a certain thing that I know I shouldn't do, right? Or that maybe not even should or shouldn't, right? But something that I know is not beneficial to me, that's a sin. And that's been helpful, because it's like, oh, right, yeah, I'm, like you said, I'm a flesh bag, right? So, I have these urges, and all my systems, my endocrine system and everything, and my dopaminergic response is designed to get me to do certain behaviors. And, a lot of these, particularly like social media and this content jungle, is designed to hijack that response.
Right.
I get it. And at the same time, Sophia Vaughn is he said something recently that I shared with you earlier. He had this prayer that was so beautiful, and it really spoke to me, because effectively what he said, well, I'm paraphrasing here, but he was praying, he was asking God, I ask you, come into my life and help me with these things that I'm struggling with, these behaviors that I want to change and I don't want to do. And also, Father, as I pray this, I realize that there may be a part of me that is lying as I say this, that maybe I don't really want to end these things, or that I know I'm going to do them again. So would you please come into that part of me and change that part of me? There's a desire, but it's not quite full and true. And, that has been so powerful for me in how I pray, because there's so many times when it's like, just, I'll do something, I'll smoke weed or watch porn or, whatever it may be. And it's like, I've told my wife I wouldn't do these things, or I've told other people like, oh, I don't drink anymore. And I feel like I'm a liar as I do these things again. And because I am, and yet as I do them, yeah, of course I don't feel good about it, but then I feel like I'm just completely desecrating and honestly defecating on the sacrifice that Jesus made. It's like, oh, I know I'm saved because I believe in you, and because you sacrificed yourself to save me from my own sins. So I guess I'm just going to sin again. And it's like, I really struggle with that, man. I'm like, I know I don't deserve that. I don't deserve what he did for us. And yet, here I am, like, completely taking advantage of it. Like, that's exhausted every day. Like, if I go a whole day without doing something that I know I shouldn't be doing, it's a big deal right now. So yeah, it's no, not Brad. I'm supposed to be perfect.
And I get that. But we are our biggest critics, and we're the hardest on ourselves. And the fact that you're aware that there's things that need to be changed and areas that you could tighten up, you're ahead of the game. The fact that you are moved by it spiritually, emotionally, you moved by the fact that these things still have control in your life means you're on the right path, brother. And again, like, you're not the only one. I've talked about my struggles with weed and things like that, and like, I can use it intentionally, and then just to be wholly vulnerable, I have someone staying in my house right now, which I'm being generous, and I've opened my home to someone who's in a tough spot. And in order to cope with that, I've been smoking, at night, trying to decompress because I need my time. But again, then I start beating myself up, and I'm like, I'm running, I'm not, and I just continue beating. I'm like, I'm human, like, give myself that little bit of pass. Now, does it mean I need to continue this forever? No. Should I find other ways to decompress? Should I lean into the Lord? Yes.
Yeah.
But you can't let that little thing affect every other thing in your life as well.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right on that for sure, man. It has been challenging to, think about my wife. I think about Danny, and she's, you know her pretty well because we spent a good deal of time together now. Think about all the things that I've put her through. I want to be clear. My wife and I have always been faithful to one another and loyal to one another. Like, we have loyalty is a core value for both of us to a fault. There's definitely been times when it probably would have made sense for her to leave or even arguments for me to do the same. But truth be told, man, like, we're in it together. We're in it for the long haul, like, for better or worse. And, I remember my dad told me years ago, he said, he and my mom were having some troubles, and the D word was getting tossed around, he was like, your mom's a good woman. And even though I'm upset right now and hurt right now, I said for better or worse, I said in sickness and in health, I said for life. And that means something to me. And that always stuck with me because, what more do I have if I don't have, what do I have if I don't have my word as a man? Yeah. And so I really want to live up to my word. And I think about all the times I've let my wife down. And it's maybe to some people it might sound trivial, but it's like, when I tell her, I'm not going to do the little, every now and then I'll get like a vape pen and just add some nicotine, or do the Zins or whatever it is, I'm not smoking anymore. But I'll tell her I'm doing it, and I'll do well for a while. But then she'll find my vape pen, like, I'll have a period of weakness, and she'll be like, I thought you were done with this, and I'm like, I was, and she's like, what? Just don't hide it from me. Just tell me that you're gonna. But I don't want to tell her that I'm weak. I don't want to tell her that I need this thing, because I don't need it. That's a ridiculous thing for me to say. I'm going to correct that. Like, I don't want to tell her that I'm weak enough that I'm going back to this thing. So I don't tell her, but then it's like she finds out about it, and it just breaks her heart because I hid it from her. And I'm like, the thing that it just, how many times am I going to break this woman's heart? Like, I'm glad it's over these things and not like, infidelity or something like that. But it's still secrets. It's still lies. Like, it still matters. And that's not what a godly man, what a good husband and what a good father is supposed to do. Does that mean it precludes me from being those things? No. And I understand that. But she still deserves better. She deserves my all-out, honest, genuine effort. And I don't know that she's ever gotten it. It's not even just my wife, too. It's like, where would I be if I actually gave everything that I had? I can think of maybe a few times when I've actually poured myself into something genuinely and gave it everything that I had. Freshman year of film school, there were 300 kids and they only took 48 through what they called the gate. So 1 out of 6 of you basically made it through the gate. And I studied so hard. I can still tell you who created the first moving picture of a horse by setting up a bunch of cameras along a racetrack. It was Edward Muybridge. Why do I remember that? Because I studied it and I know those note cards. Why do I need to know that? I don't. But I do because I genuinely poured myself into it and I made it through the gate. I got straight A's. And one of the big reasons I did it was because when I went to college, both my mom and my dad said, like, well, you're not going to get straight A's because, you know, all of us went to college, your sister included, who's 6 years older than me, 7 grades ahead of me, went to Princeton at 17, was like, through no fault of her own, was always this bar that I just never could best. And so didn't even bother trying. And they told me I couldn't get straight A's and that I was going to go to school and I was going to party it. I was going to, you know, have fun and I wasn't going to get straight. And I was like, well, I'll show you. And so I did. And I studied my ass off and I got straight A's and I made it through the gate. But it was interesting because later I had a conversation with my father about his experience in college. And Dad had a similar gate type scenario. And Dad had this incredible confidence that I just never really had, like in certain things I do, but not many. And his freshman year, they had a professor that they called the Axe Man. And the first thing he said to his students, he said, students, look to your left, look to your right. 2 of the 3 of you will not make it through my class, and you will not be continuing to become doctors. And Dad's immediate reaction was like, oh, that's a shame. They seem like nice people. Like, he just knew that he was going to make it through. So like, he had this incredible confidence that led him to make it through that same situation. Me, I had this crippling fear that I wasn't going to make it through. And that manifested in me studying super hard, not only to like prove my parents wrong, but also because like, if I wasn't, I believed forever that I wasn't good enough. And if I didn't make it through that gate, then that would prove that I didn't belong there, that I wasn't smart enough, or that I wasn't all the things talented like so many people have told me that I was my whole life. And it's like, I just had this fear the whole time. So Dad's confidence, he knows he's going to make it through. I'm terrified. And like the result was the same for both of us. We both made it through this process, but I'm like, wouldn't it have just been nice to have that confidence and be like, no, I got this. You know, but there haven't been very many times that I've actually applied myself. One of the other times was when Danny and I built her a car. She had a car that we built in 35 days. When I say built a car, I mean all the way down to the frame, the chassis, and literally like had lots of help from other people. But in 35 days, we went from a bare metal chassis to a fully built engine, a roll cage. Everything was painted, reassembled, all new everything. Built a brand new car and had it tuned and went and raced it in 35 days. I mean, for anybody who's built a car, you know how absurd that is. That was like 20-hour days for weeks. And I think about what would my life look like if, granted, that's not sustainable, but like if I had genuinely given my all at being a skier, if I had put in the work in the gym to actually be in shape, if I had genuinely given my all to being a husband, or to being present for my daughter, or to my painting business, or my roofing company, or any of the things that I've done, like my racing career, man. I'm a great driver. Had I put in the time on a simulator, had I put in the time to build my confidence to do the deals, and because racing takes money, man, that's the reality. The more money you have, the more competitive you are. That's the unfortunate reality. Skill matters to a degree, of course, but it matters far less than the amount of funding that you have. And that's the downside of racing. But if I'd actually poured myself into that, where would I be? So yeah, it's, you know, I look back, like I'm 40, I'm not even 40, I'm 39. And I look at things and I'm like, yeah, there's regrets. So now I think about, all right, my behaviors are going to shape my children's lives. And the things that I want for my kids are so much grander than the things that I did. I mean, I just want to be as good of a model for them as I can so that they know, oh, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. I don't want to be the beard, belly, gut dad. Like, I want to be able to protect and provide for my children. I want them to see this is what it takes. You have to put in the work. You have to take care of your body for your body to take care of you. And, so many things, man. Where do you think that lack of being all in came from? Do you think it's because your dad and your sister had cast such a shadow that there was this part of you that's like, I don't think I can ever achieve that, so you're afraid to go all in to truly test where you are? Or a lot of people, like, more people are afraid of success than they are really failure. And that's the reason why they don't pursue things, or they don't go all in on things. So where do you think that mindset came from of like, yeah, hey, if I go all in, then maybe I am going to prove myself right that I'm not enough, or there's just too big of a shadow there that I don't think I can achieve? Well, so this is something I've done a great deal of work on, and I know the answer to this question. So for me, it's the belief that I'm not good enough. And I've done a lot of work to address, to change, to shift. I don't know that it's completely possible to ever like completely remove something like that from your neurology once it's installed, right? There may be people that disagree with that, and I respect it, and that's fine. But the more clients I work with in my neuro-linguistic programming capacity as a coach in that method, it's pretty obvious to me that those things can stick around, even though you eliminate them from the majority of areas, right? So without going into the details of NLP, what I have found is that because of the way I was raised and because of the values that were instilled in me, I had this belief that I just, no matter what I did, I wouldn't ever be good enough. And I look at it and I think, a lot of it comes from how things were communicated. My mother, bless her soul, is my biggest champion and cheerleader for both my sister and I. Always has been. And my mom, honest to God, believes, probably to this day, but definitely when we were younger, my mom believed that I could have been the Navy SEAL astronaut surgeon president. I mean, like, there was no limit to what my mom thought her children were capable of. And I am so blessed to have had that belief. I see that now because I look at my daughter and I think, like, I remember the Will Smith song, like, just the two of us. And he's like, what do you have to be? A general, a doctor, maybe an MC. Yeah. And I look at her and I'm like, I have no idea what you're going to be like or what you're going to be into, but I know that you can do anything you want to do. So I understand that belief that my mom held for so long. And yet the way that it was communicated, she never intended to create it, but basically it instilled this belief that I'm not good enough. I remember a time in particular where I came home from school young age. I was Our Lady of Fathers. I think it was, third or fourth grade in Catholic school. And I was a young boy, and I brought home a report card I was really proud of. It was all A's and 1 B. And I remember, like, genuinely having pride in showing it to my parents. And my mom's reaction was, why isn't that B up there? Now, fair question, because she believed that I had, and honestly, if I had actually poured myself into it, I could have easily gotten straight A's. Yeah. But those kinds of situations manifested over and over and over again created this belief that, like, well, no matter what I do, I'm not good enough. And so for me, it's this deep held belief that I'm not good enough. And later in life, in high school, that started manifesting in, if I'm not going to be good enough, why am I even going to try? And I'm just going to do enough to, like, placate the system. And college was the same thing, man. It was like, other than that first year where I was terrified, like once I made it through that gate, it was like, oh, this is done. So now I don't have to like work as hard. I realized that college was a lesson in beating the system. It was just like, all you have to do is show up. Like, if as long as you go to class and kind of pay attention, you're going to pass. Like, most of the classes I was in, like, I was in film school, Brad. I wasn't becoming a doctor. I wasn't on the med school track or like an engineer or anything. It was like, I just have to show up and like watch a movie and then write a paper on it. Like, you just have to care.
Yeah.
And I went to school for film because I was interested in it. I didn't even know where I was going to go with it, but I watched my sister I remember at Fatima, like I was Kelly's little brother. She's 6 years older than me and 7 grades ahead of me. She's smart. I'm not dumb. She skipped a grade because she's brilliant. She is incredibly book smart and just smart in general. But like, as far as studying, she's just great at it. So my entire life, she was this like bar of, I'm going to go to Princeton and graduate. I don't know what to do. So maybe I'll just go become a lawyer and I'll just go to, I wish she could go to Georgetown or some, absurdly high school. Not like Princeton wasn't high enough already at 17 years old. Like, you kidding me? She's incredible. My sister's brilliant. And then she ended up being a human rights lawyer who would track down war criminals in this country, who worked for the government. I won't say which agency because I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but like, she worked for the government and tracked down war criminals from other countries and built cases against them to deport them to their country's origin. Like, my sister is rad. How the fuck am I going to live up to that? I played drums. I played piano. I remember even as like a little kid, I played piano. I was really good at it, man. And I remember people telling me like, oh, you're so talented. And I remember feeling like that was so dismissive. Like, I'm 12. You have any idea how much fucking time I've put into like hours a day sitting in front of this piano, doing scales and figuring out like how to get my fingers to move that way. And I still to this day, I can't sight read because I would listen to it and memorize. Once I figured it out, I just memorized how to play it. But like, you know how much time I put into getting good at this? And people just, oh, you're talented. Like, I just fell out of the womb tickling the ivories. And it felt so dismissive. And then I realized I read this book by Dr. Carol Dweck. It's something mindset. I can't remember. A growth mindset. And she references a study that she was part of where they took kids and they praised them. And all they did was changed how they praised the kids. One group they praised for the effort that they put in. Like, oh, I see how much work you put into that. Like, never mind the grade you got or how it turned out, but like, I see how hard you work on it. Like, way to go, way to put in the effort. And then the other kids were like, oh, you're so talented. You're so smart. You're so this, you're so that. And they were told what they are. And then which was exactly what I had growing up. You're so talented. You're so smart. I even remember like my parents telling me like, you're smarter than your sister, which ironically, like, first of all, I don't even care. But if they're telling me, at least my mom, if she's telling me I'm smarter than my sister, who at the time was already like graduated from Princeton, and I'm like at a public school talking about going to a public university in Montana that my mom thought she's like, people get rejected from CU Boulder, go to Montana. Like, why would you do that? Like, it was great for me. And she agrees now, but at the time, like, didn't want me to go. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm smarter than my sister. I'm just not using it. So then I just felt like garbage because I wasn't living up to what I could be doing it, right? But again, not good enough. My mom never intended that. I want to be clear. I love my mom. I'm grateful for my mom. She is a wonderful mom. This is the thing that I look at now with my children and I go like, what am I doing that's going to like accidentally, unintentionally mess up my kids?
That's one of the things I talk to parents all the time. They're so fearful of screwing up their kids. Like, one way or another, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to say something some way in the wrong moment. There's going to be misaligned love, or, they're not going to feel loved and nurtured in that moment, or they're going to see things through a different perspective. Like you said, like, your mom was always trying to lift you up.
Yeah.
But you twisted that as I'm not good enough because I can't live up to those expectations.
Right.
And
I firmly believe, like, had my mom known or understood that she would have changed. She would have like been like, okay, no, this is not what I'm intending. Like,
right.
But also, like, my mom's a human being too.
Right.
So, it's like, okay. And I, truth be told too, there are things I think that I understand about my mother now that I didn't as a younger man and as a boy. And I think about some of the things that she went through growing up, and as a person, as a mother, as a wife, as all these different things. And I think, like, okay, yeah, so that's maybe passed down, or, I can see maybe where that came from. And that helps me understand. It helped me, like, because I used to, like, completely incorrectly, I used to blame my mom. Well, like, my mom was sitting, it's so ridiculous. It's like my mom's sitting there at home going, like, how do I undermine my son's confidence? Like, it's so ridiculous, but I was in that victim mindset of, like, and this is where I think a lot of, like, the therapy, like, we did counseling and therapy as a family. I did it, I did it many times, but it's so much that, and it's like, oh, let's talk about your childhood. Like, I get that a lot comes back to to childhood, but, like, I'm so tired of people telling me to, like, point the finger at my parents.
Right. Well, and sorry, and obviously you've heard what I've talked about navigating through, like, my mom and my dad and the way things, and, like, again, like, I know my mother loved me to death. She just wasn't that nurturer in those small little moments that I needed her to be. So that my perception of her lack of loving me or nurturing or caring for me gets twisted.
Yeah.
Because we see things through the lens of that little child.
Yep.
That needed to hear things a certain way. Where I was saying, like, you came home with a B, and it's like, why is there a B there? Like, I grew up in a blue collar town, and, like, my mom wanted more from me. My family wanted more from me because they knew I was capable of more. So they set an expectation and put a bar up there. And so when I did things and I didn't reach that bar, it was, hey, why didn't you get there? And for me, it's like, I did all this good and you're focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm never going to be able to be enough for that. But their intentions are pure, 100%. They want nothing but love from us. They want nothing from the best from us.
And it's because they know, they know what you're capable of.
Right. So when they see, like, for me, or my mom saw me half-assing something, like, one of my favorite memories, when she saw me half-assing something,
it drove her nuts because she knew she knew I was capable of so much more, as a good parent does. That's why I say she was a wonderful mom. This memory I have as a young boy, I don't even know how old I was, Brad. It was soccer as, like, little kids, or amoeba soccer, where it's just, like, the group of people, just, like, the kids just following around, like. But there was this rule they had that during I think, like, the third quarter or something, I don't remember how it worked, but, like, a certain portion of the game, they'd had so much trouble with parents, like, yelling and screaming at the kids, that this soccer organization I was part of said the parents are not allowed to talk to their children or yell or scream or anything. You can clap, even cheer, but that's it. You're not allowed to yell at the kids during this part of the game. And it was literally just to, like, because we were so young, so many parents took it seriously. And it was literally just to have these young kids, like, have fun. And which was a great idea. But I remember there was one time, man, I was playing defense and I was just back there, like, twiddling my thumbs, kind of messing around. I think it was, like, kicking the grass with my cleats. I wasn't playing the sport. And so during a quiet period, I heard my mom go, "Run, TJ!" And, like, the ref, blew his whistle, was like, "Man, please, quiet down." And I still remember that because it was like she was watching me, like, waste my talent. And it understandably drove her to make a comment. Yeah. And in that moment, I remember, like, I started running and I started playing again. So, like, to my mom's great credit, she was on most of the stuff that we're talking about. Like, she was right. She was right. Yeah. And that kills me because it's like, now I'm a father myself. And it's like, God, if I were to, listen to some of these things, maybe not everything. My mom's not perfect. But, like, she was right about a lot of it. Like, had I honestly poured myself into stuff, like, man, where I would be right now. And that's like, it breaks my heart because she saw that. And it's like every parent's nightmare of like, see your kid squander away this talent or these gifts or these blessings, these things that God blessed us with, and just too stubborn or lazy. Or for me, I'm a contrarian, having a whole life. And so it's like, oh, you tell me I'm talented? Well, I was just not going to try anymore. I remember like I was playing tennis when I was younger, and I was really good at that too. I used to beat the kid who went on to win state in high school. I used to beat him regularly, like when we would play. I was really good. And I was like, Mom, I came to her one time and I was just like, Mom, I don't think I want to play tennis anymore. She was like, okay, sounds good. And signed me up for private lessons. And so it's like, I'm out, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But like, I wish my mom was right, man. I wish I would have stuck with tennis. I wish I would have stuck with piano. I wish I would have stuck with music in general, but it was like, because I felt like I wasn't good enough, there was a fear that if I kept doing it, I was eventually going to be found out that I wasn't all the things that people were saying I was. And that's what that book, Carol Dweck, was talking about, where it's like the kids who were praised for their effort were willing to take chances. They were willing to fail. They were willing to work harder, and they were honest. They learned, like, failure didn't crush them. They just were like, all right, I want to do it different next time. Yeah. And then the kids who were told they were talented, they were smart, they were this, they were that, those kids started to lie and started to cheat and started to they wouldn't take the chances. Failure just shut them down, and they like dropped out of classes instead of, figuring out how to do it more. And it was like, reading that book, man, it shook me to the core, because I started seeing all the things that, even as, like I said earlier, like as a young boy, I remember being told I'm so talented at piano and being like frustrated by that, even though it was obviously said with, grace and came from a good place. But it was, that was exactly me, man. I mean, the lying and the cheating, and like I used to lie through my teeth, and like for what? Like I would lie about nothing. Like, why am I even lying about this? Or lie about stuff like that I was obvious they was gonna get found out. I was gonna get more in trouble by lying, And so there were a lot of things that really stuck with me from that book, because I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense, and I don't want to do that to my kids. I want my children to know that I'm proud of them for their effort. It's the effort that really matters. Like, look, my daughter is very smart. I know that. And yet I try to praise her for the effort that she puts in when she does something, not just when she gets it right or the way I think it's rare. And that's something that, like, God bless my mom, even though she didn't mean to teach me, she taught me that. So I get to be a better father than I would have, because I got to see things about both my mom and my dad that were wonderful, and also that I would do differently. And so it's, yeah, man, I feel very blessed. I've had a wonderful life. I have two great parents. I have a wonderful sister and an incredible wife, a beautiful daughter who I'm very, very proud of. And she just lights my soul on fire, man. Like, I come through the door. It doesn't matter how bad my day is, and I walk through the door, and she's there for Daddy. And she comes into that awkward toddler run. It doesn't matter what's happened. That little girl puts such a smile on my face. I would move mountains for that little girl with my bare hands. And yet there's also this fear of, like, I'm not good enough as a dad. Like, shit, here we go again. I'm doing it to my own kids.
Speaking of
exhausting.
Speaking of the dad thing,
yeah, let's go there.
let's go there. I'm talking about having that
those shoes to fill, that bar that was set high. I think one of the most beautiful things I love about you, TJ, is the reverence that you have towards your father, the admiration relationship that you guys had. And you mentioned recently that he had just passed, but if you want to dive in a little bit, just talk about that relationship to dad. Talk about the accomplishments and achievements that your father had, and how he kind of really just set a big standard that you felt like you had to fill. Shoes you had to fill, which you didn't, but understandably so.
Yeah, man. My dad passed away on March 9th, 2026 at 1:33 in the morning. And I was holding his right hand. My sister was holding his left hand. My mom was holding his head. And we were all with him. And my dad fought cancer for 11 years. And he had a multitude of different kinds of cancer. When he first got diagnosed with colon cancer 11 years ago, he had his first surgery. And he died on the table. And he had a near-death experience where he had the out-of-body experience, and he was looking down on the nurses and the doctors trying to save him and bring him back. And he saw the light, warm, welcoming, beautiful light. He went towards it. He tells the story about, or told the story, I guess, about seeing this beautiful light and going towards it and feeling this fatherly figure. And he wasn't sure if it was God, if it was our father, or if it was his father or his grandfather. It was just this fatherly presence. He said that they reached out and took his hand, and he knew that he would be safe and that his loved ones would be there. And but he had a choice. And his choice was, you could either go do that and be part of that beautiful moment now, or at that time, I guess, or he could choose to come back and fight. And he knew that it would be a challenge. He knew that it would be difficult. But my dad, he knew that he would miss me and he would miss my sister. But my dad, just like I mentioned, he said, I promised that I would take care of your mother. And I said, for better or worse. And so he chose to come home and fight and to take care of mom, because we had watched mom's mom, my grandmother, go through just horrendous Alzheimer's. And we know that mom's been afraid of that her whole life. And I can totally understand why, when she's kind of in the early stages of that journey right now. And, that's incredibly difficult. So dad made the choice to come back and take care of mom and make sure that she was taken care of. And God bless him for that. I don't know who makes that decision to turn around and walk away from everything that our Father's kingdom is, to come back and take care of the people that you love. I love him so much for that. So he did. He came back and he fought for 10 more years. And when he passed away, I was able to say to him, hey, when you see the light this time, it's okay to go. And then both my sister and I told him in our own words, we said, it's okay. We got mom, the day my dad died, we were sitting there and we were talking and we watched. If you hear noise, the cat, my cat is on right now. We were talking with my dad the day he passed about making sure that mom was taken care of, and like dad had everything set up. Like he did a good job. Yeah, he really did. But the day he passed away, he was making sure that my sister and I both knew and understand that his focus is to make sure mom's taken care of. That was his focus. And so, yeah, it was really tough. I didn't know that my dad was my hero until
till it was too late, later than I would have wanted, I should say. And we knew things weren't going great last year. And so we basically took time off and did a bunch of trips and spent a bunch of time with him, with my mom. And I'm really grateful that we did that. But yeah, my dad was a great man. Certainly had his faults. One of his regrets was that he wasn't present more. He worked really hard to provide for our family, did a great job. But one of the things he expressed to me was he wish he would have made more attempts to spend time with the family and to, be at games and recitals and concerts and to take those trips. And, he always regretted there was a trip that he was going to take us on to Spain as a family. And he didn't because he and my mom got in a fight. And so we canceled the trip. And he was like, I really wish I'd have done that because that would have been a wonderful experience to go see. I have family in Mexico and family from Spain as well. We would have gone and seen like the history of the family, Either got to do that. So, he was a human being too. And yet, he was the oldest of 7 kids. Came from not very much. My grandfather was a good man and, had his vices as we all do. But my dad at 8 years old, my grandfather came to my dad and said, Tom, I've got to take this job out of town, which was honorable to begin with because the whole story there is that Grandpa was promised a promotion and the company said they gave it to another person. And he challenged them and asked them why. They said, well, you have a family and this other guy doesn't, so we gave it to him because we know you need the job. And he quit on the spot. And so he took another job outside of town and then came to my father and at 8 years old said, hey, Tom, I need you to take care of your mother and your brothers and sisters while I'm gone. You're the man of the house. And so Dad basically didn't have much of a child out. He was always looking out for other people. God bless him, he did that very well. And so coming from that, putting himself through med school at Notre Dame and getting through, meeting my mom, falling in love, getting married, he did work very, very hard to get through everything that he did. He had a private practice he was part of for 30 some years where he never turned down a client that couldn't pay. We used to get insane gifts and thank you notes and stuff, just random things from people because they didn't have any other way to pay it for taking care of them. And I didn't really understand because mom kind of sacrificed. Well, mom did, to her great credit, she sacrificed a career. She wanted to, I don't know if she would have been a nurse or a doctor. And mom was brilliant herself. She could have done any of that. In fact, at like 60 some years old, I think she went and took a nursing course at the local community college and wrecked the curve for the whole class. She's very, very smart herself, but she gave all that up to stay home and raise my sister and I. And, so because she did that and supported my dad, and Dad went into the military and they traveled around, and with my mom's support, Dad was able to grow his career and be, a hard worker and successful and provide for the family. So like it's greatly due to my mom as well that they were able to build what they did, because mom could have been like a lot of surgeons' wives and driven fancy cars and had a lot of fancy jewelry and done the vacations and stuff, and we wouldn't have the ability to take care of her the way that we do now. And mom was very frugal as well. And they really were a team. But yeah, I came from a family where loyalty was key, where family mattered. And I wish my dad was around more. I wish I had more memories with him. I have some wonderful ones, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I wish he was around more. I would have given up a lot to have more memories with him. In the last several years, we've been able to do some really, really wonderful things together as a family. I think because he chose to come back and because I think he realized what's on the other side and realized how important this time is. And so wanted to to spend some of the resources he had acquired to do things together as a family. And so he took us to the Galapagos Islands. I mean, how many people get to do that? It was a trip of a lifetime. He and I went hunting about a year and a half ago, and I've wanted to get into hunting for years. He never did growing up, and I never did growing up because he didn't. And we both went. I waited for years because he was fighting cancer, but we went and we both got our first deer together. I had a record that year for the smallest deer mounted, but I didn't care because I got it with my dad. And, those are the type of things that I'm glad I have memories of. That, those memories are the things where I look at now and I'm like, yeah, I wish Dad was around more. So I want to be around more for my children so that those memories are there, because that's truly what matters. I mean, losing Dad was like, I look at how his whole life he provided, he took care of everybody else. He had that confidence that I mentioned, and yet he was always there to help somebody. He just, especially family. It didn't matter what I was doing. I remember one time I was probably 15, 16 years old, and he pulled me aside. He pulled me into his office, and he says, "Hey, I just want to talk to you for a minute." He told me, I said, at some point, you're in high school, you're going to be going to parties and things are going to happen. It's like, at some point, I hope that you make the choice to not drink, or hope you make the choice to stay sober and be smart. But if you do, just don't drive. Either stay there, or if you ever need me to, you can call me any time of the night. I will come get you, and I'll give you and any of your friends a safe ride home. Just don't drive if you've been drinking or doing anything. And I promise that you won't get in trouble, and I'll never tell your mom. And that, like, I've shared that with my mom since, but that part of it was really where it was like, oh, okay. Because, I would have gotten in trouble with mom, because she, if I had been drinking in high school or something like that, it would have been, I wasn't living up to my potential, right? So I rightfully so, she wouldn't have been happy about that. But because I knew that I had that option, that's why I didn't drink. Because as a contrarian, as a young man, it was like, I don't feel this urge to, like, if I'm not going to get in trouble, if I have that out, then I don't really need to try to do that. And so I will definitely do that for my children as well. But I think Danny's on board with that, so I don't have to keep it from her, which is yes. But that was the type of guy my dad was. He took care of people regardless of what their situation was, because it was the right thing to do. And I miss my dad, man. I think about him holding my daughter, and the joy that he had for that little girl. My name's Thomas Jerome. I'm named after both I'm named after both of my grandfathers, which I really love. It means a lot to me. In fact, that's why I still go by TJ. It's to honor both of them. My father was Thomas George. He was the third. So I'm the fourth Thomas. And when we found out we were having a son, I asked Danny if I could name him Thomas, and she agreed. So she's going to pick the middle name, but which we still don't have yet. I'm getting all nervous about that.
Just 6 weeks.
Yeah, she'll figure it out. I might not know until it happens, but she gave me Thomas, and so Thomas will be the fifth Thomas in our family. He'll be able to continue the Fry name, which I'm really excited about and very grateful for. I think about my dad. I got to tell him that, so he knew, because I know it was really hard for him. He and my mom, God bless them both, they never pushed my sister and I to have children. They supported us in whether we did or not, and I'm very grateful for that. But when they found out that they were both overjoyed, but especially my dad, coming from a big family. And yeah, man, watching him with my little girl was just a blessing, and she got to spend time with him. And I don't know if she'll remember him. I hope she does. But seeing how he took care of other people, yeah, I wish he was around more. Dad was very stoic. I wish he expressed more emotion when I was younger. Until Dad had cancer, I don't, I could probably count on one or two hands the number of times that, he said, I love you. And I know he did, but it kind of wasn't something we ever really said. And then when he had his near death experience and had cancer and things, that changed dramatically and it became a much more normal thing. But for all of us, not just for my dad, for our whole family, which I'm grateful for, because, saying it, I think matters. And, but man, he took care of people. He was generous. He really wanted to do the best work that he could. He had this confidence that he could figure it out. I mean, like, he was an orthopedic hand surgeon, and, surgeons in general are often known as, like, you want a confident surgeon. But at the same time, like, it could be exhausting. God bless my mom, supporting him the way she did. I know that he could have been more supportive when it came to how they wanted to parent and things. And that's something that I take, that I think my dad could have done differently and better, is support my mom more. I'm trying to do that my way. But yeah, like, some pretty big shoes. It was neat seeing the 6 aunts and uncles, my dad's brothers and sisters and all their family that came out and came to his service, and they were all there, and just seeing how, I mean, it's their brother and I understand that, but like, it's the reverence and the pain and the grief was so profound because he was like basically the patriarch of the family. And, I gave a eulogy at his celebration of life, and I said to everybody that I'm not Tom, but I'll do my best to stand in for him. And the whole reason I said that was because I saw him, and count on one hand the number of times I saw my father cry. And when he buried his father, when my grandfather passed, Dad stood up and said that same thing. And I think he did a really good job. And, now I'm 39, and I don't know which of the other brothers or sisters feels called, if they do so, to try and step into that role of like making sure that the family stays connected and we have that like leader type role. But on top of protecting and providing for my own family, like, yeah, there's some pretty big shoes to fill. And everybody says, oh, you have to live your own life, then shouldn't feel like you have to fill those shoes. And I understand that. Yet at the same time, of my cousins, there's only 2 of us that are ever going to have kids that can continue the Fry family name. It's me and my cousin Johnny. And because a lot of the other cousins were girls, and the aunts, they took their husband's last name, so it's really like it's Johnny and I. And so there was no male heir until Thomas, who is going to join us here soon. And there is something about the family name that is profoundly important, and legacy, and like protecting and continuing that is so valuable and important. And I'm just figuring this out recently, within the last couple of years, I think, since having our daughter. And yeah, man, with my dad passing away, it's like that patriarchal role is left open, and I feel called to step into that in what capacity I can. Not just by continuing the family name, but trying to raise a good son and a good daughter, or be a good husband and father, but also being in a role where I can help our family stay connected and continue meet and love and support one another, which you think like automatically happens, but there does usually need to be that. There's like that one person who's the glue, and I've seen that so many times where like when that person passes, things just kind of fall apart. And I watched it with Danny's family, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's a good or a bad thing. It's merely an observation, but like, when her grandfather passed away, a lot of the trips that we used to take when she and I, we've been together almost 20 years, Brad, and like all the stuff that we used to do with their family, going paddle fishing in the east side of Montana, camping, going to the cabin, fishing, whatever it might have been. It's like that all kind of went by the wayside when her grandpa passed. And yeah, he was the glue of that family. My father was the glue for ours. And so, yeah, it does feel like there's a big, empty hole, if you will, that just needs to be occupied. And I know I'll never be my dad, and I don't want to be my dad, man. I want to be better. You have to be.
That's one of the things I tell you, TJ, is you are one of the most kindest, caring humans. Like, you just have this heart that just cannot even fill in this room. And that's why I love you to death. And that's why I spend so much time with you. And I just want you don't have to be him. You just have to be you. And that's it. Like, you have these special gifts that he never had. And you can fill a room up like he never could. And you bring comfort to people like I'm sure he never could. So you need to do things on your own pace and not trying to step in his shoes. Be TJ. Be you, and you will be more than enough. I see the way you are as a father. I see the way you are as a husband. I see the way you are as a friend. And none of us are perfect, but you're everything you need to be. And I just need you to realize that. It was a big, babe. Appreciate you. Thank you for that, Bert. But no, you've shared that with me, man. I knew it consciously. It's just that I'm working on accepting it. You're the first person too that will tell me, like, you deserve a lot of credit too. One of the things that I think people who know but I mean, you flew down to Colorado for my dad's service. I don't even think you ever met my dad. Have you ever met my dad? Oh, at one house? Yeah. So it's like you were there just to support me and my family. And that means a lot to me, man. It really does. Thank you for that. When I literally just before this, you were helping me paint doors for work that I have to get done because I don't have another person. My wife's pregnant. I can't ask her to flip doors, So it's like I'm you've helped me clean my yard. You've helped me clean my house. You like, if I need something, I know I could call you. And I'm so grateful for that. And I have that with George too. I'm real grateful for that, man. It's just, I've never been good at asking for help. The pressure that you put on yourself to kind of step up in your dad's shoes and to be the patriarch of the family, feeling like you need to fulfill that. And I think one of the things that, because like, truth be told, like, you've been fucking struggling, brother. Yeah. And understandably so, like wholeheartedly so. But let's dive a little bit about what you've had to navigate, with losing your dad and not even just losing him, but you stepped away from a lot this summer and even the past months to be there with your dad, to try to create those memories and try to be with it as much as you can. And that pressure that I know you felt of, like, you walked away from your painting business, you walked away from, your coaching, you walked away from short-term providing for family to be with your dad and how challenging that was. Yeah, still is. I mean, you're absolutely right. So, I mean, last year in 2025, we knew that, Dad was
had just turned 75 when we passed. And so during 2025, when he was 74, we knew that things were not looking great. I thought we'd have more time than we did, but Danny and I discussed it, and I said, I think we need to spend time with Dad this summer. And she said, yeah, absolutely. And so I was going to shut the doors to my painting company, and it literally basically set in motion doing that. I had spoken to my insurance company and everything. I'm like, hey, I'm going to have to resume this later because I'm basically taking a year off to spend with my father. And Danny was fully supportive. God bless her for that, because it was a burden. We even discussed. We said, like, hey, we had gotten out of debt, and we said, well, this is probably going to mean we'll have to put some things on credit cards and make it work. And she supported it, but yeah, financially it was a big burden to stop working. And then unfortunately, I'm not going to name the guy or throw him under the bus, but the guy who I had running my company, where he was basically handling a lot of things for me, I told him we were going to close down. He said, well, I kind of want to keep it going. I think I can, make this work and make it happen. And, I trusted him. He's a good guy. He's a good man. He's a man of God and good Christian. And I just trusted that he was going to do what needed to be done. And unfortunately, it's my fault, but it ended up, the agreement we reached basically made sure that he was paid and that he would get commission as well as being paid. And he didn't really have the motivation to track down clients, to track down work. And so when the phone rang, he would go talk to people, he would do what needed to be done, but like finding the jobs and staying busy and keeping the revenue coming to a degree that the company could survive or could do what it needed, he just didn't do. And so what that ended up meaning was that on top of spending the money on fuel and food and travel to spend time with Dad, we went to Washington and Oregon and Colorado and spent time and had wonderful memories with that and with Mom and Dad. It ended up costing me about $50,000 to keep the business open the whole time. And so, now I'm in the process of digging out of that hole. And it's just me. I don't have any employees. It's just me. And so, thanks you for helping me today, because there's certain things that like I need help with. I need a second set of hands, another body, and I just don't have one. So yeah, put a big burden on us financially. And yet, man, I would do it. I would do it again I wouldn't even blink an eye, like easily. Yeah, those memories with my father, going down and jeeping and in the sand lawns in Colorado, and the time that Danny and my mom got to spend with Aspen and seeing the train in Durango, the memories there that I had as a little boy with the train and with my mom and my grandparents that she now has. And I'm really glad we did it. I really am. But yeah, now it's basically it's cleaning up the mess. It's cleaning up handling all the challenges that caused, that we knew we were coming. And if I'm making progress, we'll be just fine in the long run. But yeah, it's a lot. And so on top of losing my father, Mom is at the beginning of the dementia slide. That's been difficult to see because there's certain things that she's starting to forget. Through, of course, no fault of her own, but she'll forget things, and it's kind of a constant reminder that, like, oh, okay, so there's a timer on this too. Like, I need to spend time with her as well, and make sure that Aspen and now Thomas have a chance to get to know their grandmother while we had the ability to, before she, is gone, or before she doesn't remember, whatever it may be. So that's a constant reminder. My wife, our marriage has been strange. My wife is incredible. She supported me the whole way with taking the time to be with Dad over the last year and a half and going into debt to do it. And she also supported me. And closing the business and pursuing the coaching thing more, and closing the paint business and pursuing the coaching thing. She's been a blessing. And then we went down to visit my folks in Colorado for Thanksgiving last year. And it was beautiful. Dad finally taught me how to, I shouldn't say finally, because he would have taught me anytime. I finally made it a priority to learn how to make my dad's Thanksgiving meal. And so I got to do that with him. I'm really glad I got to do that. And on the way home, we were staying with our friends, and Cody and Danny woke me up, and she said, "Hey, Aspen's going to be a big sister." I'm like, "No way. Awesome." But then Dad's health started going downhill, and we went down to visit him. We were there for a month and a half, and before he passed. But my poor wife, being pregnant in a hotel, dealing with losing my dad, and she and my dad were pretty close. Like, they understood each other, and then to give you an idea of how close they were, my dad wrote my wife into the will against the encouragement of his attorneys and his financial advisors. He wrote my wife in such that if something doesn't work out with, like, if Danny and I were to split and go our separate ways, Danny will be provided for. That's how much my dad loved my wife, and also how much he loved his grandchildren. Of course, he wants to make sure Danny's taken care of, but they were very close. As far as, a father-in-law can be. And so, I'm very grateful for that. My parents, both my mom and my dad, really accepted Danny as their own daughter. My sister still calls Danny her sister, so I'm very grateful for that. And, but yeah, being pregnant and uncomfortable and living in a hotel for a month and a half. And then to top it off, as if that wasn't enough, Danny's best friend from childhood lost her mom while we were in Denver living in a hotel. And that woman, whose name was Kelly, just like my sister, that woman was instrumental and was very, very important to Danny as she was growing up. It was kind of like another safe home for Danny. And so, Kelly was very important to Danny growing up. So here's Danny losing this woman who was incredibly important to her, and losing my dad at the same time as we're living in a hotel dealing with all of this. It's put a strain on our marriage. And then I come back, and now I'm like, boom, thrown back into this, dealing with all the craziness of losing a parent and transitioning and handling all of that, as well as, Danny losing Kelly. And now I'm back in this, I get home, and it's like, okay, here's all this debt. Like, what are we going to do? Like, well, I guess I better start working, and I've got paint work lined up, so I may as well do it. And it's like, so now this pregnancy has been really, really difficult on my wife because, I'm trying to get work done so that I can pay off this debt and I can, get us out of this hole. And my sister has her wedding ceremony coming up shortly that I'm going to Denver for, and I need to get all these paint projects done before I leave for that. So I've basically been down in my shop working all day, and my wife, who's third trimester pregnant, very uncomfortable, heartburn, all the things with being pregnant that, of course, you and I can't fully relate to, but can at least empathize with. She's going through that while raising a toddler, and our daughter is a beautiful combination of both of us, but both of us were nightmares as children. So, my wife is dealing with a toddler, the terrible twos, and pregnant, having lost people that are important to her while we're in debt. It's like this woman's just been put through the ringer, and then, like I talked about earlier, man, like, and then I fail her. It's like, I'm drinking or smoking or doing something that I said I wouldn't do anymore. I don't know how much she can take. And I'm so grateful that
loyalty is a core value for both her and I. I didn't know that going into it. I didn't know that about myself when I met her at 20 years old, and I don't think she knew that about herself. Maybe she did, I don't know, but I definitely did not consider that when we started dating. And yet I feel like God put a perfect partner in my life. And I also worry, I'm like, well, am I taking advantage of knowing that my wife is so loyal that she'll be here through like anything? Like I can't continue to do those things to her. So I'm very much trying to be present and balance everything else that I have going on while trying to be present for her. But it's a lot, man. Anybody that's had a pregnant wife understands like she's the one going through it, and I give her all the credit for the difficult part of it. And a pregnant wife is not the easiest thing in the world to deal with. Sorry if that's offensive, but it's true. And it's not her fault. Like she's growing our child, and I know she's uncomfortable, and miserable a lot of times. And so it's like, I'm trying to do my best to support her and also take care of the things that I need to take care of. And I know that I'm failing at both, like I'm doing it, but like they're both suffering. And that's been weighing on me.
What are you feeling though?
Yeah, well, okay, so
Let's be honest, man. Like, what is failing would be you running away, totally avoiding everything. Failing would be, you putting yourself into a drunken stupor, not functioning. You're showing up. You're still getting things done. You're managing things. You may not be 100% all in like Superman, but I don't think anybody can be in that situation. So
yeah, and
redefine what failing is.
I suppose that's a fair point. To me, like I mentioned earlier, but my word matters, and I do, especially with my wife. I don't live up to my word a lot, and that's so important to her for reasons that are not mine to share. She shared some of them publicly in the past, but I won't go into them because that's her story. But doing what you say you're going to do matters a lot to her. And it should matter to everybody, it does to me, but I think for her, that's a huge thing. Like actions speak a lot louder than words. And unfortunately, a lot of my actions are contrary to what I'm saying right now when it comes to her, as far as, like, I'll help you with the dishes. I'll, cook the food. I'll take care of you. I'll be here to support you. And it's like, I'm not, I'm there maybe more than I have been, but not as much as she needs. And that's really difficult for her and for me. So failing is like, have I failed completely? No. But am I living up to what my partner actually needs? Also no. And that's where, I guess maybe failing isn't the right word, but I don't know what else I would say. So it's like, because to me, I don't think there is no failure. There's only feedback. And right now I get a lot of feedback, not
the positive.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there has been some good things, for sure. Like it's not all bad, of course. Like, and especially like when it comes to Danny, she's very appreciative. She sees the efforts that I'm making. Even this morning, like she was having a rough day and she didn't want to tell me what was going on. But with my wife is tough as Tarzan's toenails, dude. Like when she's tearing up and crying, it's because there's something really going on. Like she's not the type of woman to do that willy-nilly, and she's never been manipulative with it, I don't think. So it was a big deal when she was in tears this morning, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you need? And she didn't want to tell me about it because she knows that I'm like overwhelmed already and I have to go to the shop. And but she's like, I miss you, and it's really hard to have you here but not have you here, and so yeah, I think it's part of it is that like perpetual male thing. Like you have to balance providing with presence, and there is no There is no way to get that perfect. So, that's weighing on me a lot, because I do want to be a good husband and present husband, father, and all those things, but got some strides to make in that direction for sure. So yeah. And I think lately I've been kind of an emotional wreck in some ways, because I saw a sunset the other night. I mean, man, just last night. I walked out of my shop at 10:30. It's Montana, so it's still bright. I mean, yeah, there's still light anyway. And I walk out, and it's that time of night where the sky's like a deep blue, but it's not blackout yet. There's just enough light that you can't really see stars, but the planets are popping. And I walked out of my shop, and I looked over at my house, and right above my house was Venus and Jupiter. And they were just so beautiful, solid stars. And I just, for whatever reason, I was like, that's my dad and my grandpa. And I just lost. I kneeled down and I said some prayers, and, just saluted them. They were both veterans. I'm not. I don't know why. I just felt right in the moment. But it's, little things like that will set me off, man. And God bless my wife. She understands, and she wants to try to protect me from, she doesn't want to add more, but I also she's so tough, and she's done everything on her own, that I worry about her too. So there is no right answer. It's just,
We just do the best we can.
yeah. Well, and I'm doing a better job than I traditionally had, or I used to, because I should give myself some credit. I very much used to just tell clients, customers, whatever you want to call them, that they were the priority, and if they needed something, I would do it. And now, especially with Danny being pregnant and with everything going on, I'm just communicating with people like, look, I'm not going to be able to finish these stores before I leave. I'm sorry. They're taking more time than I thought. You guys didn't get me the color information until a week ago. So, I mean, some of it's on you, some of it's on me, but the reality is, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm sorry. I'll get to it as soon as I can. And that's been helpful, because that has given me a little bit of relief to go spend a little extra time with Danny. Like this morning, she was struggling, and it was like, all right, let me feed the kid and, spend some time with you. Let's play a card game. We'll play a game called 13. It was like, let's play 13. She's like, I don't know, I'm good. I'm like, will you play a game with me, please? I'm like, I don't have time for that. But I always have time for my wife. And so, it was like, all right, let's sit down. And we did. And we had a good time. And, she knew what I was doing, and she thanked me for it. So, she sees the efforts I'm making, and I'm much better about that than I used to be. And yet I still, have a ways to go, obviously. So it's kind of a never ending thing, which, such is life, right? So it's, you're right, man. I have been struggling. I've been telling people, I'm north of bad, south of okay. Yeah. And that's honest. I told a couple weeks ago at church, one of the messages was, don't fall for the church hug. Remember that? When it was just, everybody's just like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. How are you? Oh, good, great. No, I'm not. And I was leaving church, and Kyle, the campus pastor, TJ, how you doing? I was like, I have been better. He's like, oh, I didn't really taking that sermon to heart. What's going on? And I told him I lost my father, and here's what Phil knows. He was like, wow, that's a lot, man. And, I said, so how are you? He goes, I'm good. I was like, Kyle, I just, what's going on here, man? Tell them what's up. He's like, well, actually, and he kind of spilled the beans about some of his challenges at home, And so it was really neat to kind of connect with people on that. But that's why I'm going to hold a mirror up for a second, man, because that's why I genuinely think what you're doing is so special, because listening to the 6 episodes at the beginning about your story, like, I know you fairly well at this point. Like, we've had a lot of really great conversations. We've bonded and we've connected on a lot of things. And yet I also only know Brad since the cow, right? So like the you beforehand, I only know from like pictures on Instagram. And it's fascinating to me just to see the changes since that period, since that moment in your life. And yet so many people with AI and content and dopamine and social media and all the stuff that's going on in the world, people are so desperate for connection and authenticity. And that's exactly what you're providing. I want to stroke your ego too much, but like genuinely, dude, like it lands. It's really cool to see the comments from people on the YouTube page, you know, on the videos. And I saw some dude the other day just said like, man, I came here to like see an update about bodybuilding, and here I got like a way more than I bargained for, but like, I'm so happy to hear you found Christ. And, you know, like this was exactly what I needed today. You know, like people responding to it. That's not a bot, bro. That's not an AI. That's a human being who resonated with your story because you had the courage or the bullheadedness or both to tell it as honestly and vulnerably as you have. And I am not comfortable right now, but watching you share your story and seeing how people react to it, you know, and inviting me to be part of one of your early groups, your early men's groups, led me to start my own group. And now I've got a great group of men that I work with. And it's like, you know, whether you see it or not, Brad, like people are responding. So thank you for doing it, because it's an honor to be here, man. And I love you, brother. I do. I really do. And I'm very grateful that you hit a cow and spent 3 days on the side of the road. I'm sorry it took 3 days for us Montanans to get you off the side of the road, because if I would have known you, you would have been out of there in a heartbeat. But man, it's
this is what this is all about, man. It's like God put this on my heart to make vulnerability room. You know, like here we are, it's June. It's been till for in this moment. And you know, men bury everything because we are told that emotions, we're not supposed to be emotional, or not supposed to be vulnerable, that somehow being vulnerable makes you weak. And that's what's been instilled in society. And if we have a population of men that are afraid to get vulnerable, they're never going to talk about things that they're dealing with, and they're going to bottle them up. And it's going to turn into addiction, suicide, higher divorce rates, fathers not being around, you name it. Everything that we've been dealing with is because men feel like being vulnerable is weak, when it's actually one of the greatest strengths that we need to figure out.
I 100% agree, man. And in fact, that's, you know, in my coaching and in my men's group, that's one of the things that I do. I say, what are the core tenets of masculinity? And the number one thing for me is vulnerability. And the reason that I say that is twofold. Number one, it's because it takes a great deal of courage to put yourself out there in a position to be hurt. And number two, God calls us to lead as men. We're to lead our families and lead our communities and our countries and our partners. And if I am unwilling to put myself in a position with my wife, for example, to allow her to potentially hurt me by giving her something, my wife wouldn't hurt me intentionally. But if I'm unwilling to share things with her that she might be able to use to hurt me, then am I really being a leader, or am I cowering away from potential challenge? And so that vulnerability is uncomfortable because it goes against our natural inclination, which is to protect ourselves. And that's where stoicism is valuable, man. Don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place, but I 100% agree with you, man. That's why I'm here. You know, I mean, it's not comfortable. I mentioned to you when we had our technical difficulties, I told you about my mom. I'm a little bit worried that, you know, I'm going to hurt her feelings, even though I am so grateful for her as a mom. Yeah. She's a wonderful woman. She's a human being. She's not perfect. She won't like me saying that. Right. But like, I love my mom. And I'm terrified that I'm going to hurt her feelings by talking about some of this stuff publicly. But I'm doing it because I think that somebody else will connect with it. And I think that it'll be hopeful. And knowing that when I share the good things about her, and there's so many of them, that those are just as genuine. I hope that it's able to bring her and I even closer. So yeah, man, vulnerability is huge. I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and do this, on a forum that I hope will impact the same men that you and I are both trying to reach with what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think, like, to your sentiment, I've had a couple of podcasts that I've filmed so far, and I think that's one of the hard things is really opening up, because our story isn't just our story. There's other people involved. And, some of the feedback is, hey, I don't want to talk about this because I don't want to hurt my wife, and I want to avoid this because I want to, protect a parent or something. And that's understandable, but it puts up these guardrails that doesn't allow us to be fully authentic and fully vulnerable. And so I think that's one of the hard things that I'll be navigating, of finding guests that are like how do you, I think you did a beautiful job at protecting your mother, like you did, you talked about real facts, real things, the same way I talk about, my issues with my mother and my father. Like, I know that their intentions were perfect, like they love me. But there's just certain things that happen in a certain moment that twists our little brain's perceptions when we're so young and so vulnerable. And
yeah. And just like I can't hold myself responsible or accountable for having that reaction as a very young person. Like, I bet you possibly think that kid's wrong for taking it that way, and then it's doing this thing. You can't hold your parents accountable for those things either. It's like, how could they possibly know what's going on in my head? I didn't even know what was going on in my head. So yeah, man, it's again, I know that these are difficult conversations, but I think it's important to have them. I hope that people are able to connect with your story and find the stories of people like myself and the other folks who I know you'll have on the show. I hope that this is beneficial for them, and I hope that in the long run, the authenticity and the vulnerability encourages more people to be real, because every day it gets harder to identify what's AI and what's real and what's fake. And truth be told, I think the most important thing as a Christian man, like as a human being, the most important thing is the relationship that we have with Jesus, with our Father, with the Holy Spirit, and then with the people around us. God doesn't have any grandchildren. So yeah, I hope that it helps people connect on a meaningful level, and it seems to be doing just that. So
and you've seen the fruit firsthand of just, that men's group, of just like, how quickly was it that, we had blue collar men, we got Army Ranger, who's been on all these crazy tours and everything else. And, guys that have been crazy drug addicts and rough and tough, and just to immediately see those walls get taken down, and then just watch these guys open up and be vulnerable from the get-go and lean on each other. And I've said, like, the most meaningful thing I've ever done in my life up to this point was starting those men's groups. Just seeing how guys lean on each other and really make an impact in their daily lives. Being able to have that brotherhood and that support. And this podcast is basically just a much larger extension of that, of just letting everybody else know, like, we're all going through shit, man. Like, there's someone out there right now that's a father, and that's expecting a father that just lost a parent, that is navigating some pain and unsure how to even move forward because their idol, the person they looked up to, their nurturer, their caregiver, is now no longer with them. And they don't feel like they have the strength to move forward to be that father
that husband that they need to be because they're so crushed. And so for you to come on and share your story and share the things that you dealt with is going to give someone else help up there. Well, I hope so. And yeah, thanks for having me, man. Thank you for always being the one on the other end of the phone if I need help. You're a good man, and I appreciate you very much. I love you both. Love you.
And I know there'll be a part 2 because there's so much more that
We can dive into. So,
Thank you again. Yeah. Thank you.
This story ends today, but yours is still waiting to be told. You're not alone in this walk in life. If this hits you, share it with someone that needs it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Find me at Brad B. Rowe at Instagram. And if you're ready to step into the front row of your life, whether it be the fellowship, the foundry, coaching, or support the ministry, you can find it all at frontrow.co. I'll see you next week.